I'm going to go on a little rant today about exogenous ketones, about ketone drinks. Stick around for this one. Hey team, Mike here from After 40 Fitness, after40fitness.ca. Topic came up and comes up regularly in the forums and social media and in conversation with my clients. It seems everyone's selling ketone drinks right now. Oh my goodness, every other day one of my clients is bringing up a package of NAD or of Pruvit ketones and saying, Mike, I know you love the keto diet. These are ketones in a drinkable form. Should I? Can I? Are they prudent? No. Let me just go on a quick rant here and let's just talk about it for the next 10 minutes and see if I can convince you not to spend, not to waste your money. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do. Please do hit like, help me as well as I grow the channel and the community. And at the same time, if you know anybody who's in keto or doing keto, this is a video you're going to want to share. This is a topic that comes up all the time, and I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to give you it straight. I'm going to talk about the science behind it, the misimplications, the mis-selling, the misinformation, the dogma. Drives me nuts. Honestly, you're going to see about that in just a minute. So on that note, by the way, comments like this get turned into videos just like this one. So if you have any questions, concerns, topics like this you'd like me to jump into and not only give you my opinion, but also the science I can find on the topic, don't hesitate. So on this note of what are ketones, let's start with that. Let's start with a discussion about the kinds of ketones. I'm going to show you an image right here that shows the three kinds of ketones that are produced when we're in ketosis, in this state, this metabolic state we call ketosis. In that image, you're going to see that there are three. So just by way of background, if you understand how the body works, right, we're primarily, and have been for the last couple of generations, straight glucose burners. We burn a ton of carbs. The bulk of our diet, the standard American diet, or the SAD, if you will, is largely carb-based. And because of that, we've gotten very good. In fact, we've tuned ourselves to burn carbs, as you know. As soon as we cut out the carbs, we have to flip our bodies over to the other fuel source, being fat. Now, the metabolism of fat in the liver, a byproduct, is what you see here in front of you. In fact, it's the first one, actually, sorry, the middle one, which is acetoacetate. So acetoacetate has a couple of biological functions. One is that it's really quickly converted into acetone, which is a waste product. We actually breathe out and urinate out acetone, which is how people can use breath tests and or urine strips and test for that byproduct. It does prove you're in ketosis. If you have detectable breath ketones or urine ketones, it means you were in a state of ketosis. You were doing something in your liver called ketogenesis, which is the production of ketones from the metabolism of fatty acids in order to produce acetoacetic acid, which can then produce acetone and the counterpart, which we all love in the keto space, beta-hydroxybutyrate. So beta-hydroxybutyrate, or BHB for short, I'm going to call it BHB going forward, is the main body that you and I love if we're in ketosis. It's the one that can fuel us, can take over all the roles of glucose, probably about 99% of them. There are a couple places where glucose is still required. But nonetheless, these are our ketones that we love. All right. On that note, BHB is the one that's being sold as a drink, as a beverage, as a way for you and I to get into ketosis quickly. Is it true? Well, let's talk about that. I had a lot of fun jumping between YouTube channels today, looking at some of the keto gurus, the keto docs, and what they had to say about exogenous ketones. By the way, have you heard that term before, exogenous? I should really quickly jump on that. There are two terms here at play. Exogenous versus endogenous. So endogenous, so you know, means our body produced it. It means produced internally. Okay. Exogenous is what we eat and drink or take in from some external force or some external source. The quickest example that comes to mind to illustrate this is testosterone, right? Men and women, of course, both, but men produce testosterone endogenously, right? Naturally. However, a lot of men, whether in their younger years when they just want to get jacked, right? They want to do some roids, or older men who employ TRT or HRT, right? Either testosterone or hormone replacement therapy, will take exogenous amounts of testosterone, right? There's the difference. And produced internally versus produced externally or provided externally. So when we talk about exogenous ketones, we're talking about drinking them. And that's by far in fact, I think it's the only way to get exogenous ketones today. On that note, there are a couple of things that are commonly thrown out as benefits of taking exogenous ketones. Number one, let's talk about them real quick. Number one is that you'll be in the state of ketosis faster, quickly. The other one is that it improves performance. I've heard it actually said it combats the keto flu. Whatever. And then lastly, cognitive improvements. So let's have a look at what some people are saying about this, and then we'll look at what the science says. All right, let's get after it.
They help you getting into ketosis quicker and deeper, so long term, they are going to actually support your body burning more fat.
Well, that sounds promising. If I can drink something and get into ketosis faster and deeper, cool, right? I wonder what Thomas DeLauer, my buddy Thomas, says about that. Let's go have a look and see what he says.
Okay, let me first off say this again. Artificial ketones or exogenous ketones are not going to get you into ketosis. So they are not for someone that is just trying to necessarily get into ketosis faster. That's not going to solve the problem.
Huh. Now what do I think? Well, that's kind of confusing, right? One says it'll help me get into ketosis. The other one says it won't. I wonder what Dr. Barry says. Let's see what Dr. Barry adds.
Now, being in ketosis means that your liver and maybe your muscles are making ketones. That's what ketosis is. If you drink an exogenous ketone drink or a shake, or you eat a bar, and then an hour later you pee on a stick and it shows ketones, that does not mean you are in ketosis. It just means that someone made some money off you.
Damn, Dr. Barry, give it to us straight. I like it. That was cut and dry. How about Dr. Berg? I wonder what he has to say on the topic. Let's check him out.
Because it really defeats the whole purpose. Despite you being in ketosis within 3 hours, all that means is you're peeing out ketones. It doesn't mean that your body is burning fat and making ketones from that at all. In fact, you may not even lose any weight doing this. You probably won't lose any weight. I mean, the goal is to correct your diet, to change your lifestyle, to get healthier. To take these pills and not really emphasize your diet is really a waste of money, especially if it's $130 a bottle.
I heard a really good analogy to put this all in perspective. If I gave you women, for example, if I gave you a shot of HCG, do you know what you would test positive for? Being pregnant. So as if taking something exogenously could put you in a state of ketosis any more than a shot of HCG and you test positive on your pee strip when you go for a pregnancy test puts you in a state of pregnancy. All right, really kind of silly to think that equating drinking ketones and having it show up in a blood test, urine test, or breath test means that anything has changed physiologically for you. Really kind of silly. All right, so I think we've beat that one to death. What's the next argument? I think the next argument that we're going to look at is that it counteracts the flu. For those of you that are new to this topic, there is this phenomenon that happens when we first get into ketosis that's typically called the keto flu. Make no mistake, it's not a flu, it's not a virus, but the symptoms, man, they mimic the flu. I don't mind telling you, I've gone through it a few times in prior decades with the Atkins version. We used to call it the Atkins flu long before keto was normalized. And we didn't know back then what we know now. So back in the 80s and 90s, yeah, we went through the Atkins flu and look at these symptoms: fatigue, nausea. For me, cramps. I mean, the worst cramps I've ever had in my life, not to mention just a general state of malaise, of lethargy, headache. Right? So those are the kind of symptoms we get, which, as you can tell, very much mimic the flu. However, notice this slide. This slide quickly suggests what the symptoms are, or what the causes are. It's a deficiency of sodium, magnesium, and potassium. In fact, to my clients don't get it. My clients don't experience the flu because I prep them. I tell them what to expect, what it is. I make sure they're set up with cream of tartar, with pickle juice, with Redmond red salt or Celtic salt or some form of Himalayan salt, so they can do a salt lick, or they can have salt in their water with their ACV every morning and before meals, or that they're on a potassium magnesium blend. For example, I'll show you one here that I'm partial to that I like to sip on throughout the day called Vega Hydrator. Hydrator is the electrolyte mix by a company called Vega. And so my clients, and now I, in my last run at keto, didn't experience keto flu. Right? It is entirely an electrolyte imbalance and easily remedied. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, though, despite a lack of science and support, people who sell exogenous ketones will say that that is the solution to keto flu. Zero science supports that. Okay, so there may be some anecdotal, some N=1 kind of nonsense where people will psychosomatically say that they had a benefit from taking exogenous ketones, but that's not the issue. Right? Clearly defined as being electrolytes, which is solved by taking electrolytes. So you could say that since BHB salts, right? You've heard that term. If you haven't, that's how they're sold. Exogenous ketones are sold as BHB salts, which means they're tied to a sodium, magnesium, or potassium backbone, a molecule, right, to make them stable, and so that's how we ingest them. It also improves the flavor somewhat, oddly enough, and the bioavailability, which means, oddly enough, you're paying big money for exogenous ketones that are just tied to a backbone of sodium or potassium, and I could see in that regard how it's possible for it to improve, but it's not the salts. Sorry, it's not the ketones. It's not the BHB.
You see, the reason that you end up feeling the keto flu is usually twofold. It's usually an electrolyte issue, but it's usually also your cells not being used to using ketones yet.
I believe Thomas gets it partially right. He does agree that it's an electrolyte issue, but this, I'm going to call it nonsense about our cells not being used to using ketones. That's not scientific. That's conjecture. And I'll tell you what I mean. Many doctors will admit that when they're testing for doing blood tests in the morning, if they test for ketones, they find them, even for followers of a SAD. That is because one of the natural things that happens in our body anytime we're low on glucose, which happens for most people during their overnight fast, is their body will convert to using or to burning some fatty acids. Right? This happens on any calorie restricted diet, no matter what the diet is. It doesn't have to be ketosis. And most people who fast for any length of time, including overnight, should have detectable ketones in the morning. It happens very commonly for just about everybody. So our body, just about every night, produces and burns some ketones.
They help to lower and regulate blood sugar.
Really? Now that one I hadn't heard until I saw Kate's video. So I had to go searching and see what I could find, and Thomas DeLauer commented on this. Let's see what Thomas says.
Since exogenous ketones are such an easier fuel to use, which is a good thing, but kind of a bad thing, the body wants to use those instead. So now the glucose that you already consumed from the carbohydrates isn't getting utilized. It's just sitting there. So if you consume carbohydrates in conjunction with beta-hydroxybutyrate, you could be putting yourself in a situation to store that glucose as fat.
So if Kate's right, I'm confused, because yes, in order to promote a healthy glucose level, Thomas says it's going to push my glucose into fat storage. The exact opposite of what I want to have happen. I want to burn ketones as fuel. I don't want to produce or ingest glucose. Any glucose that is produced via gluconeogenesis, I want to top up muscle glycogen. And yet Thomas is agreeing that it'll work because it pushes, in the presence of ketones, exogenous ketones, it pushes glucose into fat storage. Well, that's the exact opposite of what I'm looking for. I don't know about you. I don't like the sound of that at all. So after all that, might there still be something to be said about the performance enhancements that might come from exogenous ketones? You know, I looked at a bunch of people on this topic, but none explain it as well as Thomas DeLauer. So let's give him a minute and have him walk through the possible performance enhancements, the pros and cons, the caveats. Let's see what he says.
Additionally, when it comes to endurance activities, exogenous ketones will help you immensely. Now, despite the fact that body composition could go out the window with this, okay, let's just not even think about that. Exogenous ketones will allow you to perform significantly better in endurance activities, and studies have proven that time and time again.
But body composition be damned. Let's not even go there, right? So Thomas has a funny way of playing the pros and the cons, and I like it. So he does readily admit that in short-term bursts, we use glycogen, glucose for energy, but in long-term, ultra long-term was his term, in marathon-ish type environments, ketones are effective. I guess I just can't get past the body composition is not something we're going to talk about, since that's probably on the forefront of, dare I say, 99% of people's mind is improving how we look and feel and our weight. Like how could he say that? Anyway, long story short, I also want to check with Dr. Barry. Let's see what he says about performance enhancements.
There's some limited research that shows that athletes at the very top of their game, at the elite level, which is much better than just a much higher level than me and you going to the gym and lifting weights. That's not who needs exogenous ketones. But if you're competing at a level one collegiate level or higher, you may need exogenous ketones. But if you're just a guy or a girl with a job and a spouse and a kid and a dog, and you're trying to use the ketogenic way of eating to lose weight or to improve your health or to decrease your inflammation, exogenous ketones are not something you need.
Okay, last but not least, we haven't touched yet on mental clarity, right? On mental cognitive performance improvements. Let's see what kind of studies there are. Thomas DeLauer is good for this. If there's a study showing mental improvements or clarity improvements, I know he'll have it. Let's see what he says.
Exogenous ketones boosting mental performance. There's zero data there. Okay, there's zero scientific evidence. There's nothing that's talking about exogenous ketones boosting mental performance. Okay, the mental performance studies all have to do with nutritional ketosis, ketogenesis. And the reason that exogenous ketones may not actually promote that mental acuity is simply because it's a very, very finely tuned process. The brain needs very specific amounts of ketones, of glucose, or anything to actually function properly. So if you just load your body with a bunch of exogenous ketones, you can't expect them to immediately go to your brain.
Well, boom, you can't even get cognitive benefits from all the money you're going to spend on exogenous ketones. So you're not truly in a state of ketosis. They go to the front of the line and they stop your own fat burning while they're used. And in the process, they may make you fatter by storing glucose as fat. On top of that, performance, unless you're an ultra marathon runner or a long distance cyclist, or you work out on the treadmill for an hour plus a day, really no benefit. Not in the short term, definitely not while lifting weights, and not of anything of a HIIT style, and no cognitive benefit. So I guess I'm kind of stuck with Dr. Berg and Dr. Barry, thinking it's just a lot of money wasted just so you can piss out ketones and see color on a urine strip. Tough to say. So with all this information out there, that there really is no support, definitely no scientific support in favor of, for the average person like you and I, drinking our ketones, why is it so prevalent? You know, Dr. Barry did a good job of explaining that there's a lot of business behind it, right? There's money to be made in supplements, and why would there be any exception to BHBs? So whether it's multi-level or not, or someone you know selling this stuff on the side, God bless them, right? It's taking advantage of people with misinformation that just ticks me right off, hence this rant. All right, now I look at someone like Keto Kate, and I like her. She's got great stuff on every topic but this one. This one just, as you can tell, it triggers me, right? Why is that? You tell me, look at this next clip, and you tell me if you think she may have an ulterior motive.
The absolute only brand I use is PerfectKeto.
I'm not going to read into that. You can read between the lines if you like. I don't know. That seemed pretty compelling to me, but I can't say for sure. So I'm not going to say more than that. However, I wondered as I went through the couple of videos that Kate has done on exogenous ketones, if I would find her admitting that you and I, regular Joes, non-elite athletes, truly need exogenous BHBs. Look what I found.
From day to day, if you are an average person eating a keto diet, hitting your goals, then yeah, there's really no need for you to take them.
Well, damn, there you have it. Even someone who loves their exogenous ketones has to admit that you and I, unless we're tier 1 athletes like Dr. Barry said, really don't need to spend our money, our hard-earned money. I mean, listen, I'm going to finish with this. Let's be absolutely candid. It's your money. It's not mine. Okay, I spend my money in a lot of places that you might consider foolish. And if I consider it foolish that you spend your money on exogenous ketones, God bless you. It's your money. Do with it what you will. But let's just establish by the time that we've spent together that definitely not necessary. Definitely not required, not mandatory. And so a couple of things to say to finish up. The keto diet on its own. Give it a couple of days, you will be in ketosis. Give it a month and you will be fat adapted. If you don't know what that means, I'll put a link below to a video on getting fat adapted, right? How it differs, compares, and exacerbates being in ketosis. Nonetheless, if you're looking to improve your fitness level, your health level, lose some fat, lose some weight, reconfigure your physique, not to mention improve some physiological markers, right? Whether it's meds you're taking from, metformin or insulin or cardiovascular cholesterol meds, edema meds. I'm by no means a doctor, and obviously you should see your doctor before you consider any of those. But the people that are having success with the keto way of eating and the keto way of life in this regard is phenomenal. And it could be as simple as just doing that, lose a few pounds or drop some inflammation, get some less aches and pains and bloating and arthritis in your joints. All those things are being experienced by people on the keto way of life. Right? It is a phenomenal resource. It's at your discretion to take advantage of it. All I can say is please do. And on that note, folks, so glad for sticking with me this long. I hope you enjoyed the content, found it entertaining as well as enlightening. Please do share this in your keto group. If someone brings up exogenous ketones, send them a link to my video. I really appreciate it. It's how I'm going to grow the channel, the community, and do my best to grab science wherever it's applicable, throw in a bit of entertainment, a little bit of my tone, and have some fun with you. Okay, on that note, please do share. Always a comment in the comment section of any video so I can turn into a video just like this one. And on that note, see you in the next one. Ciao for now.